Okay, so this week's parshat Vayeshev is the beginning of what's known as the story of Joseph and his brothers, right? It all begins in this week's parsha, and it runs for the next 13 chapters. And as we've pointed out in the past, the Torah tells us major stories just in the space of a few verses. For example, the story of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. You can sit also, you can also sit at that table if you want to. You'll be more comfortable, okay? The binding of Isaac, the Akedah, the entire story is given over in one chapter. And it's certainly a major story, right? But here, this is in a certain sense, like, more the story of our daily lives. meaning to say, because this story is about brothers and how brothers don't get along and how we're supposed to end up reconciling it and so on. So sure, like as a people, we've lived through sacrifices like the Akedah, where we had to be ready to give our lives just for being Jewish. But this is more like the story of what's it like to live with each other, and when things are prosperous, and you get into matters of jealousy, etc., etc. This is more like down to earth, day to day type of matters, right? Yosef and his brothers. Day to day, like what do you do with your little brother? What do you do with your big brother? What do you do with your little brother? Like, when's the next time that we're gonna hug each other? When's the next time we're gonna beat each other up? Type of thing, And I remember when we were kids, and my parents were out of the house. Sometimes the neighbor had to come down to break up these huge fights. Like we were like if the neighbor came down to see what's going on, it wasn't good. It wasn't the most comfortable thing, right? And we've all heard of stories about. You can keep the picture there too. So we don't need it. Okay. Yeah, we've heard stories of the families. They're sitting shiva, and while they're sitting shiva, I heard of one family where there was like a huge inheritance of maybe like the value of like $80 million and so on, and there were I think 6 or 7 of them sitting shiva, and before the shiva was already over, a couple of the siblings sort of made plans, and they went ahead and without telling anybody else, and they went and made these big investments, which then went sour. The other siblings had to take them to court, and like these. So the story of Yosef and his brothers is a real day-to-day issue, and as you see right at the beginning of the parshat, Yeshiv Yaakov Be'eretz Megurei Aviv, it starts in chapter 37. Yaakov was living in the land of where his father lived. Be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. Ele Toldot Yaakov Yosef ben Shva Esrei Shana. These are the generations of Yaakov. Yosef is 17 years old. Hayav ro'eh et echav batzon. He was working with his brothers as a shepherd, taking care of the sheep. V'hu now, and he is sort of like behaving like an impetuous youth. At Bnei Bila, but Bnei Zilpa, he's particularly friendly with the children of Bila and Zilpa, the concubines of Yaakov, and the Shei Aviv, who are considered his wives also. Vayaveh Yosef et dibatam ra'a l'aviyam, and Yosef kept on coming and telling his father about the terrible things that his brothers were doing. And surprisingly, Yisrael ahavat Yosef mikol banav. Well, nevertheless, Yaakov loved Joseph more than all his other children. And the Torah tells us why. Ki ben zekunim hulo, because he was his ben zekunim, which one meaning is that he was born in his old age. And the other meaning is that he was the one that Yaakov gave over to Yosef all that he knew, all that he learned. He taught him everything more than anybody, more than any of the other children. So what does he go? What does he do? Vayas lo ktonet pasalo ktonet pasim. So he went ahead and he made him a shirt of pasim, which literally means stripes, but basically a shirt indicating, or a garment indicating that he was designating Yosef to be the next leader. because otherwise, if it was just a matter of a fancy shirt, his brothers aren't little boys anymore. They can go buy one themselves, right? That's what Natan Chaim would do. Like, like if you give something to one of your children and not to him, let's go and get one.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you would do too.
No, I don't know.
But this is a Ketonet Pasim. This is the kind of thing you can't just buy. It's obviously it's a conferred title. It's like like stars in the army, or like etc. So so his brothers see that their father loves him more than any of the other brothers. So they hated him. They couldn't speak with him peacefully. And Rashi says that they couldn't fake it. In other words, at least the Torah is telling us that they're really honest. Okay, so there's a lot of things over here, but the main thing I want to just emphasize over here is realize that the Torah is not giving us a script for a soap opera. Like telling us, and this one did this, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then that happened. Like dragging out a saga over 13 chapters for no reason. But the fact that the Torah is telling this story in so much detail is because basically the Torah is modeling for us, is teaching us how to overcome these issues of jealousy, who's responsible for it, and it's sort of like, on the one hand, it's showing us how dangerous jealousy can be, and how dangerous it is when a parent shows preference to one child over another child, right? And but on the other hand, the problem is, you as a parent know that this child is cut out to be the next leader, and more than any of the others, right? So you've got to, it's part of your responsibility to see to it that when you leave the world, that you don't leave the flock without a proper shepherd, that you don't leave the ship without a captain. So how do you navigate that? How do you choose? How do you go about designating one of the children as a leader, and without the others, getting really upset about it, and so on? So there are those that will argue and say, well, everything should be a democracy. Put it up to a vote. Well, have a look at what's going on in America today. For sure.
The United Nations.
The United Nations, anywhere, democracy doesn't seem to be necessarily the best functioning system either, because for all kinds of reasons. But you know what? In a certain sense, the Torah is basically telling us that these are the struggles of life, and the fact is that you're not going to live a life that is smooth. Forget about it. There are going to be struggles, and what you really need to do is you really need to learn how to navigate, and you really need to learn that when things break down, you have to fix it. You have to fix it. You have to take responsibility, and you have to fix it. And oy vavoy, unfortunately, I know some people where like two brothers, and I don't think they've spoken to each other in 30, 40 years. They see each other every day, but they pass each other by in the street as if they're strangers.
Really?
They just won't talk to each other.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, better than fighting the whole time, right? But it's a terrible tragedy when that happens. I mentioned the other day that I have a friend in New York, a very special young man, who told me that that in his family, a very high number of people, an unusual number of people, were getting that illness, cancer, and a number of them died, and he, he sat down to think, what's going on, what is it about his family more than, that makes them such an unusual case. And he, he realized that one of the things that was going on in the family was that this one wasn't talking to this one, and this one wasn't talking to that one, and this one made a simcha, and they won't go to this one's weddings, and this one they won't go, and these guys won't go to his wedding, to those. So finally, he consulted with another Rebbe, and he himself is a descendant of Rebbe Shea. He's a Rebbe She'enikel, and he called his family together, and he said, "Listen, if we don't make peace amongst ourselves, we're going to continue having these problems." And he convinced them to drop this, to drop all the things that were holding them apart from each other. And he said, Baruch Hashem, the health is, they're not having the same things happening as before. So, so the Torah is telling us, these things happen and are likely to happen. And when it happens, don't turn your back on the situation, but rather know that you have to do something to make it, to rectify the situation. So the whole story, with all the details in the story, etc., if I assume that if you study it carefully, you could see, that the Torah is basically providing you with a whole psychology of how communication breaks down, how hatred develops, and what do you do when that happens, and how do you rectify the situation. Okay. Other than that, Rashi says right on the beginning of the opening verse, Vayeshev Yaakov settled down, and that Rashi says that after all the years of suffering that he went through, he was away from home for 22 years, and running away from Esav, having to deal with Lavan, getting cheated, and being treated almost like a slave. He finally came home. He finally wanted to sit down and have a tranquil life. And no, Hashem says, sorry, it's not part of the package deal. Some people think that they become a Baal Tshuva. That means that now everything's going to make sense, everything's going to fit, everything's going to be smooth, or or sometimes people convert and they think everything's going to be nice because they come here, they see a community that cares and takes care of each other and so on, and but then they find out that the issues that they had to deal with before, they still have to deal with them. Just because you've become religious doesn't mean that you don't have to deal with jealousy anymore. It doesn't mean that you don't have to deal with the various temptations. On the contrary, it might even be more sharper. So So when Hashem, Reb Shlomo says, when Hashem gave us the Torah, He didn't promise us tranquility. And he goes on further to say that I know that in his yeshiva he advises the students to always ask questions. We're not talking about asking stupid questions, but keep on asking questions. Because the way of learning, you're learning some Gemara in your yeshiva, right? The whole thing is, you learn something, you think that it's nice and smooth, right? Mm-hmm. Along comes another rabbi and says, no, you can't say that. What did you base that on? Who told you what makes you think that that's right? I'll prove to you that you're wrong. And you have questions and answers, and you find an answer to one thing, and then before you know it, 5 minutes later you realize that the answer doesn't work, and you're back at square one, and so on, and you have to. But that's the process. That's how we learn. You don't, the Rambam, when he wrote his magnum opus, so he wrote that you don't have to learn the Gemara anymore. This summarizes the entire oral Torah in a very clear-cut way, and you don't have to. There are no questions. There's just clear answers. This is what you do. This is the halacha. This is the halacha. So it turned out that the Rambam ended up becoming one of the major sources of questions in the process of learning. And he didn't succeed in doing it. And in fact, he sort of regretted. Rav Shlomo says that he didn't put in citations. Like when he writes his halachas, he doesn't tell you the source for it. We know that the source is from the Gemara, the way he learned the Gemara, but he doesn't put it in there like, saying, I decided on this because of this one's opinion or because of that one's opinion and so on. He just tells you what the decisions are. But of course, the rest of the learning community didn't buy that style, and they analyzed his work and contradicted his work, and so you have scholars who spend their lives just on interpreting the Rambam and trying to resolve all the arguments that there's between the Ravid and the Rambam and this commentary and that commentary, and there's a huge amount of sforim that have been written just on the Rambam, and so on. So that's the process. And life is, it's a process. So let's skip the dreams. You're all familiar with the dreams, right? Mm-hmm. And if you go to verse 11, Yud Aleph, so it says after he tells his father and his brothers the second dream with the sun and the moon and the stars all coming and bowing to him. So it says that his father got upset with him. And then it says, Vayikanubo Echav, and his brothers were jealous. Vaviv Shamav Etadavar, but his father was waiting for it to come true. In other words, his father realized that these were prophetic dreams, because the question is, what are you? Come on, Yosef, you're an intelligent guy. Like, okay, so you're having these dreams. Why are you telling them to your brothers? Why are you doing this to make them jealous? Do they have to know your dream? So the Mefarshim say that dreams was one of the ways in which Hashem communicates with man, and that these were prophetic dreams. And as such, he shares them with his brothers because he's saying these are dreams that are divine revelations, and we have to learn what Hashem is trying to teach us from these dreams. So he has to share them because they're not given to him just for him to have them alone. So that's part of it. Okay, but in the meantime, but his father is waiting for it to come true. So then the Torah continues and says, the brothers went to graze the sheep in Shem. Yisrael al Yosef, and Yisrael says to his son Yosef, "Hello, achecha roim b'Shem. Your brothers are grazing the sheep in Shem. The chavesh techacha alehem. I want to send you to them to see what's happening. Vayomer lo hineni." And Yosef says, "Hineni, I'm ready. I'm ready." Right? Yeah. Rashi explains that hineni means anava, humility, and zrizut, alacrity. I'm ready to do it quickly, and the humility, the being humble, is that he recognizes that his father. This is what his father wants him to do. He doesn't say, "Why don't you send somebody else? We have so many servants. Send one of the servants," or something like that. But obviously, his father is basically telling him, "You're going to have to confront your brothers. You're going to have to confront your brothers, and you're going to have to deal with this." Go and see the peace of your brothers, and how the animals are doing. And bring me back the report. So he sent him from Emek Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And somebody finds him. Rashi says that this is the angel Gabriel. And Yosef was lost in the field. In other words, he wasn't sure which way to go. You can take that on a literal level, and you can take that also on a symbolic level. Like he's not absolutely sure about how he's going to handle the situation that he's in. So this man says to him, so he asked him, the man asked him, what do you want? What are you looking for? So on a deeper level, what is it that you really want? So Yosef answers, I am seeking my brothers. Can you tell me where they're shepherding? So the man says to him, they've left this place. And it's interesting, Rashi right away explains they traveled away from Zeh. They've given up on you as being their brother. Their brotherhood is basically over. And the word Zeh, Zion is 7 and Hey is 5, that makes 12. So there's the illusion that they've given up on being a cohesive group of the 12 tribes. So he's basically warning Yosef, right? And he says, Kishamati Amrim, I've heard him say, Nilcha Dotaina, let's go to Dotan. Vayelech Yosef achar echa vayimtzaim b'Dotan. So Yosef immediately set out after his brothers, and he found them in Dotan. And the word Dotan, the name Dotan, is also an allusion to the word Dat, which means religious law. And Rashi right away notices this, and he points out that they're making plans, they're making religious plans to kill you. In other words, they're developing religious decisions to justify them executing you. Sort of saying they're going to use religion against you. Right? You've heard of that? Right? Unfortunately, that happens. People take certain religious information or certain religious facts and they use them against people. Like, for example, this is one of the tragedies of our times, is, for example, men who should be giving their wives divorces and they hold them hostage either by refusing to give them a get. Either they're demanding money or they're demanding all kinds of other things and so on. And tragically, we're in such a state of golus, we're in such a state of exile that the Torah, that it's possible to abuse the Torah. You know? So the interesting thing is that what's Yosef's response? Yosef's response is, if my brothers are at the point of willing to let this family of brotherhood go down the drain, he immediately sets out to meet them. He immediately sets out to try to do something about the situation, even though he's just been warned that they're planning to kill him. He says, if that's the case, I'm not running away. I'm going to confront it. Takes a lot of guts. Takes a lot of guts to do that. Takes a lot of guts to you have to have a real strong belief when, you know, that instead of turning your back on this religion, to say, no, I really believe that we can work it out, and we can figure out what we need to do. What are you thinking?
A lot of things.
Huh?
A lot of things.
About this or about other things?
All over the place. How long was Yaakov in Eretz Yisrael after you left Lavan?
He ended up being there he was away for 22 years, and Yosef was away from him for 22 years. So it was like just 22 years.
And then he went to Egypt.
And
then he hung out in Egypt.
Yeah, and those last years in Egypt were his best years of his life, his last 17 years of his life.
How does that make sense?
That's next week's parshat. I mean, or in Vayechi.
I'm already in next week's parshat.
No, there's 2 weeks away. You're not there yet.
Coming up next.
Okay. So we always read these parshiyot during Hanukkah time, you know, particularly Miketz. So being that Hanukkah is starting this month of Shabbos, I'm going to switch now to learning something about Hanukkah from Reb Shlomo. Okay? So I don't have enough books for everyone, so I'm gonna teach from it. Okay? So everybody knows that we have an oral Torah and a written Torah, right? The written Torah is written, period, and you can't add to it. The oral Torah is being added to all the time. And in the calendar the way the calendar works out, the first holiday that was added by the rabbis, that the first holiday that we encounter after Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot is Hanukkah. Even though historically Purim precedes came a few hundred years before Hanukkah. But in the yearly calendar, in other words, if you look at the calendar of the year as a guide for living through the year. In other words, each month has its particular qualities and things that that you should work on each month and so on. And each holiday has its particular qualities. So the holidays that we had from Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, sort of come to an end of a cycle with Hanukkah. But in any case, Hanukkah is the first real Torah Shebal Peh holiday, the first holiday of the oral Torah. Purim is also rabbinical, but Purim is already it's in the books of the Tanakh. There's these two books called Maccabees 1 and Maccabees 2 and so on, and the rabbis decided not to include those two books in the 24 books of the Tanakh. So Purim has its book among the books of Tanakh, but Hanukkah doesn't. It's completely oral Torah. And Reb Shlomo points out that there's all of 2 pages in the entire Talmud. There's all of 2 pages discussing Hanukkah, and on these 2 pages, hundreds of Sforim have been written on just on Hanukkah itself, like questions, answers, and so on, and insights. So he refers to Hanukkah as the headquarters of Torah Shebal Peh. Now, the question is, so in the davening, in the prayer that we add in the Amidah throughout Hanukkah, and also that we added in the Birkat Hamazon, the prayer of Al HaNisim, where we're thanking God for the miracles of Hanukkah, right? So it says there that the Greeks wanted to cause your children, they wanted to make your children forget the Torah. So which Torah was it that they wanted to make us forget? They wanted to make us forget the oral Torah. So Reb Shlomo goes on to explain the fact that every night of Hanukkah we're adding another candle, right? That indicates the whole process of Torah Shebal Peh, adding another insight, another question, another answer, another, etc. That's Torah Shebal Peh. You keep adding to it. So, what makes it holy? What makes it holy? When you're learning Gemara, right? Rava says this, Abaye says this. Is this just a bunch of scholars who are like great scholars and they're discussing an issue? This one says, my opinion is this and my opinion is that. And then they argue it out, and then there's a decision made which one we're going to follow. Fact of the matter is that the Gemara says concerning Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, who were constantly arguing about matters in halacha, the Gemara actually says, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Both of them are speaking the words of the living God. So, why is the Gemara holy? If it's just a matter of, different people's opinions, we wouldn't say that it's holy. We wouldn't say that the Gemara is holy. We would say, like Barak says this, Ian says this, and your name again? Daniel says this. But if it's part of Torah Shebal Peh, if it's part of the Gemara discussion, it's holy. Why is it holy? Reb Shlomo says that when you're learning Torah and you get a really new, you get a new insight that nobody's said before, and it's something that will withstand the challenges that it's going to face. That means that Hashem is revealing another aspect of Torah through you. In other words, it's Hashem's, when the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, it's Hashem speaking to us through Abaye. Amar Rava, it's Hashem speaking to us and revealing Torah through Rava. Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel, whoever is in the Talmud is holy. It's not just a collection of opinions of what this one thought and what that one thought and so on. It's mamish, is kadosh, is holy. Okay? So why? How do you achieve that? Right? How do you have an insight into Torah that you can actually say, this is holy, this is not just my idea? Barak, I don't know if you remember, but there's one of the early Hasidic Sforim is called Ma'or Einayim, the Chernogler. Right? He was a student of the Maggid of Mezrich. I think he may have even known, he actually was by the Baal Shem Tov also. And so we have all of one volume of his teachings on the parshat. And it's known that this man said a lot of Torah over all the years that he was a Rebbe. And after Shabbos would be over, his disciples would write down the things that he said on Shabbos. And then they would show it to him. And the only things that he allowed to be published were the things that he didn't remember having said. Why? Because the things that he remembered having said, he didn't really trust them. He thought that these are things that maybe he constructed logically and they make sense and everything, but he didn't believe that this is coming from Hashem. But the things that he didn't remember having said, right? So he did those he trusted because he was obviously just channeling it. Okay. So you have a new insight into something, into a verse in the Torah. Where does it come from? It's Reb Shlomo says it comes from the deepest depth of your soul. Right? But how do you get to have this? How do you get to find this? Why is it that what allows for you to reveal something so deep in the Torah that's never been revealed before? So Reb Shlomo says, all of a sudden, this is something that illuminates in your being, this concept, this idea, this new insight that you have, right? And you can only see it when you are connected, when you are honestly connected to the deepest depths of your being, when you're really connected with your neshama. And then when you discover that, that is your shlichut. That is what you came to the world for. Not only that, but in other words, that is one of the main reasons that your neshama came to the world, was to receive this new insight of Torah and to share it and contribute to the further growth of the oral Torah. But again, in order to be able to receive it, you mamish have to be connected to your neshama in the deepest way. So I was thinking about that. So we know that, for example, the Lubavitch Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, was a continuous, ever-strengthening fountain of Torah coming out of him. I once heard Reb Lau say, the father of the former, not the one who's chief rabbi today, but his father was chief rabbi before. So I heard him give a talk once, and he said that the first time that he was by the Lubavitch Rebbe, it was his father-in-law, Rav Frankel, who was the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv. He took him to see the Rebbe. And they were sitting behind the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was talking. And he says his father-in-law kept on pinching him, saying, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" And in a matter of like a 30, 40-minute talk, he said, Rav Frankel said, his father-in-law told him, "Do you realize that he referred to at least 200 places in Shas, and that it was full of new insights, etc., etc." Okay, so also Reb Shlomo came down with unbelievable insights in Torah and so on. So what Reb Shlomo is saying is that it's not just a matter of you've got the intelligence to do this, and that other guy just doesn't have that intelligence. That other guy might even be more intelligent than you, and he may have learned in yeshiva for many more years than you. But if he's not connected to the deepest depths of his soul, then Hashem is not going to give him the gift to have these insights. Because it's really Hashem giving him that insight. It's not something that, like, you've got a problem and you try this solution and you try that solution and you try that solution, and then finally you come up with what you think is the best answer. But rather, it's only as a result of really being connected with the deepest depths of your essence, being connected with your soul. Now, in one of the Tanya portions from last week, the Alter Rebbe speaks about the mitzvah of tzedakah, like an intense flow of a very a powerful river, like the current of a very powerful river. And what he goes on to explain over there is that simile, or metaphor, whichever is the right word, concerning tzedakah, he teaches us that when you're giving tzedakah in the way that you're supposed to be giving tzedakah, right? Hashem is constantly doing tzedakah. Hashem is constantly giving us. And if you join Hashem in that holy act of giving, then your soul gets in touch with that flow of life that Hashem is constantly providing, and you manifest, and in that way you manifest Hashem's light in the world. Okay? Now, all these great rabbis were constantly giving everything away. Judy told me that many times Reb Shlomo would go out into the street on a cold winter night wearing a sweater, a jacket, and a coat and a hat, and he'd come home in his bare shirt, because he would see homeless people lying in the streets, freezing. And this one he would take off his coat and cover him. This one he would take off his jacket. This one he would take off his sweater, and he'd come back home in his just with his shirt. I had occasion to walk with him a couple of times on Broadway and so on. And after one block, he had no money left. After the second block, I know I had no money left because he would take the money from the people that were with him to give it away. So what I'm saying is that is depth, in other words, being in touch with the deepest depth of your soul. One of the things that means is that you mamish want to help people all the time, and you don't make any calculations like, well, I gave at the office, I gave enough, I did that, and like, these people like mamish, their whole life is a life of tzedakah, and that is one of the aspects of being in touch with the deepest depths of your soul, with the deepest depths of your being, and it goes together that people who live that way are also the ones who become like fountains of Torah wisdom and revelations of new insights into Torah that hadn't been seen prior. So can you imagine, like, think about that your neshama came to this world to discover and reveal new insights of Torah that nobody ever came up with until now, right? And this is not meant only for scholars. This is meant for every single Jew. The only issue is, are you connected with the deepest essence of your soul? That's the issue. And if you are, then you will begin to see all these things. I remember, I haven't seen him in a long time, Zev, the drummer. When he first started learning, and he started learning the parshat every week, he was showing me things in Rashi, and it was just the first time that he was learning Rashi. He was showing me things in Rashi that I, after 30 years of learning Rashi, never even noticed. Okay? And is it because he's so brilliant? He is very smart. But when he was learning, he was like mamish learning like Hashem. What do you want to teach me? What are you trying to show me in these words of Torah that I'm learning? Like, I'm here to receive. I want to see everything that you want to teach me. And Hashem was like mamish revealing things to him that not just I, but others in the shul also were just like, our jaws would drop, like, wow, you saw all that, and this is just your first year of learning Chumash Rashi. It was amazing. So, but this is a man, like, who was really connected to his deepest, to the essence of his neshama. That's the fact. That's how he was living his life. So, just one more point. He says, so long as this deepest essence of my being is not connected to Yiddishkeit or to Torah, I'm still outside, right? And what does it mean to really do tshuva? It means to reconnect yourself to where you're supposed to be connected with Hashem. It says that doing a transgression is not just a matter of doing something that's prohibited. The worst thing of doing a transgression is that I'm detaching myself. I'm detaching what's unique about me from Hashem. So the oral Torah is coming from that deepest point of the holiness of the Jewish people, where every Yid has a particular point, a particular shlichut to particular mission and particular insights of Torah that even Moshe Rabbeinu did not reveal, and that every one of us is there to is there to discover that and to reveal it. So to connect this with the parsha, so let's say you have a bunch of children, and only one of them is really going to be the leader, right? So what do you do with the rest of them? You teach them just to be followers. That's going to make problems, right? And what you need to do with every child basically is you need to get every child to believe in himself and to believe that, yes, I might not be the leader, but I have something unique that nobody else has. And my job is not about being the leader. My job is about being real to my real deepest essence and to who I am. And that's what parents have to do for their children most of all, is to have them believe in themselves and for them to believe that they have something unique, and what makes them important and special is when they discover that unique thing, rather than measuring it in worldly ways of who's the leader here, who's the decision maker, who's this. Maybe I'm not the decision maker, but that doesn't make me any less important than the one who is the decision maker. Because no matter what, whether I'm the decision maker or not the decision maker, every one of us has that gift to be deeply connected with Hashem and to bring down Torah revelations that nobody else can do. Everybody has that little cruise of pure oil. And everybody has a Greek army that's trying to destroy it. And everybody has to find it in themselves to say, I'm not giving up. No army is going to stop it. No army can take away that beautiful soul that Hashem has given me. No army can take away these insights that I'm supposed to discover in the learning of Torah. And that's basically the essence of Hanukkah, and the essence of the whole story of Yosef and his brothers is also all about all the brothers coming to the recognition that each one of them has their task, and each one of them has to fulfill his mission in life. And if Yosef is the leader, then Baruch Hashem, let's help him do the best job that he can. And if Yehuda is going to become the leader eventually, Mazel Tov, let that be. If I'm not meant to be the leader, Mazel Tov, let me accept that and try this and not waste my time to be something that I was not meant to be. Okay, so we'll stop over here. You want to say something?
I wanted to ask a question. So the brothers, they harbored this resentment towards him. They harbored this jealousy towards him because he's parading around in this garb that. So
because he's telling them these dreams about how they're going to bow down to him.
So
And they're all older than him too.
right. So that did Yaakov not do? I mean, I'm saying, but did he not do a good enough job in conveying what you were saying, that fostering this, self-worth in each one of them?
So if you read the story superficially, it looks like this was a pretty dysfunctional family,
Right.
right? And that Yaakov shouldn't have, selected Yosef and so on. But that's it's not really an argument. In other words, if Yaakov knew that Yosef is going to be the leader, he has to designate him. He has to designate him. But could he have done a better job with the rest of the brothers so that they shouldn't hate him? There's an expression in Yiddish, akasha famaisa. You're asking a question on the story. Who knows? I mean, there isn't any evidence. There isn't anything to tell us. You see, it's all because of Yaakov did this and he didn't because he didn't do that, and so on and so on. And maybe he did everything right. It's possible sometimes that parents do everything right. You do everything right, and you still don't have that ability to prevent the struggles that the children are going to have to go through.
It seems like he didn't put up any kind of scaffolding.
No, he did. He did do that. But like you can't go around life and say, just blaming your parents for this or for that or for that. So, this person who was either already about tshuva or was considering becoming about tshuva asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe the following question. He said, if Hashem wanted me to be religious, then why was I born into a totally non-religious family? It's a good question, right? Because most religious people are people who grew up in religious families. Most people who are not observant are people who grew up in families that are not observant. So he says to the Rebbe, if Hashem wanted me to be religious, then why wasn't I born into a religious family or in a Shem Shabbos family? So the Rebbe gave him this brilliant answer, and he said to him, that's not your starting point. Your starting point is that you are a neshama, and that before your neshama comes down to this world, it was administered an oath, Tehi tzaddik va'al tehi rasha, that you should be righteous and not to be wicked. That you're supposed to be a tzaddik. You're supposed to do all the mitzvahs of the Torah. You have a question, why did Hashem have me born into a family that wasn't religious? So it's a question. Hashem has his calculations. Hashem has his reasons. It's not, you might one day find out, and you might never find out. But that doesn't matter. The fact is that you and I and every one of us went through the same process before our souls came into this world. Namely, that our souls were administered an oath to be righteous and not to be a rasha. So maybe this guy is starting at what seems to be the 8th rung on the ladder, and the other guy might be starting at what seems to be sub-zero. It doesn't matter. The issue is not where where you are on the ladder right now. The issue is which direction you're going, and are you being true to your neshama's purpose? We should be blessed. Yes.
So is there a lesson to be taken here to maybe you should keep your mouth shut sometimes? Why do I say this? For example, when he's younger, he tells on his brothers, and they hate him.
Yeah, but Rashi says that Rashi brings from the Medrash that he was punished for every one of those.
Right, it's 3 times.
He got into trouble. Huh?
Right.
Listen, meeting up with your brothers and then having them rip your garment off and Mamish literally planning to kill you. And then along comes Reuben and he says, no, let's not actually kill him. Just throw him into the pit, right? And the Torah says the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And Rashi brings a teaching from the Gemara right away. If it's empty, so we know there's no water in it. And the rabbi in the Talmud says, yeah, water there wasn't in. There was no water there, but it was full of snakes and scorpions. So, you have these experiences in life, and again, the question is, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to handle it? So Reb Shlomo says, what's the secret? How did Yosef manage? So a big part of the secret is that his Jewish identity was without question. There were no questions as to am I a Jew or not a Jew. It was clear to him, I'm a Jew and I'm ready to live my life with Mesiras Nefesh. I'm ready to give every moment of my life being attentive to what is it that Hashem wants me to be doing. Okay, have a good Shabbos. Mr. Hashem, we're hoping to have Shalom Shabbos. And there's going to be a concert, Mr. Shabbos, at Asaf's Cave in the Old City. And thank you for coming.
Thank you. I'm off to RBS this weekend.